Welcome to Social English. Before we start, I want to share with you a short video first. Let's watch it together.
They say, right? The great pandemic certainly was a terrible thing where they lost anywhere from 50 to 100 million people. Probably ended the Second World War. All the soldiers were sick. That was a terrible situation.
As we see, we have this kind of president right now. But I want to start here by saying that we will focus today on the coming election, and which I think it would be a historic one because we are going through an extraordinary times. And the pandemic brought to the surface two more disasters: the economic decline and the racial tension, which is getting worse as Trump's administration is taking a dictatorial approach to deal with the issues in hand. We have today as our guest Professor Bruce McGraw, the author of The Magical Universe, newmythology.com, and we will discuss these issues in today's episode. So, Bruce, tell me, why this election is crucial, and do you think that the grassroots of the two parties take it seriously as well?
Well, I'll take the first part of your question first. I definitely think this is the most important election maybe ever, as some people have said, in the history of the United States.
Yeah.
It seems like we have two issues that are overriding. One is we have to save our country, at least the democracy of our country. And the second issue, I think, which is even bigger than that, but we have to take care of the first issue first, is to save the planet. And so I put it in those two different ways. And I think, the only way we can really save the country, first of all, is to elect Biden and Harris as the next president and vice president. If we reelect Trump and Pence again, it seems very likely he will finish the job he's starting as to, really set in place his dictatorship where he starts to control the courts, the media, all areas of investigation, so that it'll be just about impossible to go after him. In another 4 years, it just seems impossible. I remember Steve Bannon said one of the things they wanted to do was to get rid of the administrative state.
Yes.
And so it seems like they want to take us back to almost like a feudalism. They're going to get rid of the middle class. You're just going to have a very wealthy class, and then the rest of the people are going to be at much lower levels of ability, income, and life will get very difficult, as it already is for many people. So I think the first thing, despite the fact that I'm not the biggest Biden fan, I'm not the biggest Kamala Harris fan,
yes,
right now they have to win. They have to get elected.
So
we have to get them in, and then once they're in, then the next job of saving the planet comes in, and we have to put a lot of pressure on them to do what's necessary to save the planet.
Yes. So I think, that's my opinion. Maybe the first thing they should do is to undo what Trump did. I think that would take a time even before start talking about the planet, right? You agree on that?
Well, I think the planet's, already they're saying we're at, 4 more years of Trump, and it could pretty much be it for the planet. It's just getting worse and worse. Yes. And that's a basic survival issue. And obviously, I think they can work on different issues at once. I think
yes,
it isn't just one thing. I don't think you can put the planet off, but I think you're right. There's other things that need to be taken care of too. But the planet always gets pushed off to the side, and then one day, we can end up with racial justice. We can end up with all the things we want and seem to have this great society, and then climate change can come along and wipe it all out. And it's, if you just read the climate news that's coming out, it's getting worse and worse and worse all the time. I don't think we can postpone action on it.
Yes. So, I mean, Trump is taking an American approach by dividing to these issues by dividing Americans into loyalists versus non-loyalists. Why he is doing that, in your opinion?
Well, I think, Trump's all about Trump. And either if you like him and you praise him, he loves you.
Yes.
And if you don't like him, he attacks you. It's
Yes.
all about Trump. And so, and I think, once the floodgates were open with Citizens United coming in, letting all this money into politics, it's really helped somebody like Trump.
Yes.
I think Trump wants total power. I think he admires all these autocrats around the world. I think he wants to be called my beloved leader, my great leader.
Yes.
He wants his face on Mount Rushmore. He's got this huge ego. And I think he admires how autocrats around the world are able to stifle the courts, stifle the media, stifle all opposition. They get 95% of the votes when they have these elections. He wants all of that. He wants it bad. But in order for him to get it, he's got to have an enemy. So he's got to have somebody to blame his problems on. So he has to kind of divide things between what he would say the bad guys who are causing all these problems, and then the good people like himself, And of course, he's running on cleaning up this swamp. But anybody who pays attention to it realizes, he is the swamp, and he's just increasing the swamp. So
yes. And as we saw in the short video, like, Republicans don't even care if the president they choose for us is so ignorant that he thinks that the pandemic, the Spanish flu, ended World War II. So, I mean, that's just a simple recent scandal. And he always do it on TV. I mean, he doesn't care, like, about truth. Not at all.
No, and he's profoundly ignorant about so many things. It just comes out, you're right, it comes out all the time.
Yes. Yeah, and that's very dangerous. Okay, so also let me ask you about this. What do you think about Biden's pick as a vice president nominee, like Kamala Harris? Is it possible that Biden is preparing her to be our first female president? Because in my opinion, I think that, among all the candidates, female candidates, I think she is the strongest one, like in personality and character. What do you think about that?
Yeah, she wouldn't have been my first choice. I think my first choice would have been Elizabeth Warren, but I understood the need they felt to have a woman of color as the choice. So they all had their baggage, it seems, and Kamala Harris seems to have less baggage than the other ones.
Okay.
So while I wasn't immediately happy when she got picked, I started watching the news, and all these different women of color came on, and their faces were so beaming with joy over this pick that I've started to warm up more to it. So, and I think one thing I like about Kamala Harris is she's a good prosecutor, and whenever they had the hearings on Barr or the Supreme Court nominees, I always wanted to see her question him because she is so good. And then in her speech, and then her speech yesterday, she basically said, this is an open and shut case against Donald Trump, and laid out the case. And I think she did it very well. I just wish she was the one in debating Trump rather than Biden, because I think she would be really effective. But I think she'll be effective against Pence also. But I know some progressives are not happy about that pick.
Yes.
So hopefully they'll warm up to it, because they have to remember the first task is beating Trump. So we can worry about the second task afterwards, but we can't leave Trump in there. It's just too serious.
Yeah. Okay.
Overall, I think I'm warming to it. I think maybe she was a good pick. She's got a good personality. She's friendly. She has a nice smile. So I think that's good about her.
And I don't know, but I think also that Americans, I mean, historically, if you study the American character, they like the strong characters or people.
Right.
So I think maybe she will be able to gain more votes because she's a tough person. Like she faced very hard time to get there. I mean, it's not easy, especially
Right.
for a woman to get there. And okay, I have an opinion, and I don't know if you agree with me about this, but I think that if Democrats were strong on foreign policy, I mean, if you since the 1970s, the Democrats have some issues with foreign policy. They seem care more about the inside more than the outside. But okay, with this globalization, I think we are more connected to the world. Do you think, and I believe that if they had a strong foreign policy, they would have won all the elections, almost all of them. So what do you think about that aspect?
Well, I'm not exactly sure how you would define a strong foreign policy. I mean, if you take a look at the strong foreign policy under George Bush and the whole Iraq War, I mean,
Yeah.
it seems like it's created quite a mess in the Middle East. Uh, and that, it's just, and they went over there without really knowing very much about the Middle East. As far as I know, I don't think they knew the difference between a Sunni and a Shiite. I don't think they knew anything about what they were getting into. So it was this
Yes.
profound ignorance.
Yeah.
I'd rather see the U.S. and a globalized economy be leaders in something positive, like, as I would say, moving into the Green New Deal, greening the world's economy, becoming a model for how we're going to move in and into the 21st century and beyond with real change that can be spread around the world. And we can be a model of something to emulate rather than, I just think this quote unquote strong foreign policy in the new coming age. I'm not, maybe you have to define a little bit more what exactly you mean by that, but I just feel like
Yes.
that's so 19th and 20th century that we don't really need that because we're seeing so many of these indigenous movements rising up in every country. I just
Yes.
don't know how popular that's going to be.
Yeah, but for example, um, how we can give a good example, for example, if there is, for example, in some countries, you find terrorists and dictators, they gain the money, the power, and then they go and kill or destroy everyone who believes in, for example, like our principles. So let's say they believe that in a clean planet, they believe in democracy, they believe in the individual. So should we just watch them like destroy the people who look like us, think like us, and yeah, they believe in the same thing that we believe in.
So are you suggesting do we want to go to war every time we see these kinds of people, or is that your suggestion?
Well, no. I mean that there will be at some times where we should stand up to those guys. Like, yeah, I'm not saying like we should always go to war. But don't you think that you agree with Trump on this side? Like the right wing, sometimes they argue that we should not be policing the world. So how do you see their approach here?
Well, I think, again, I think we have to be kind of a moral beacon for the world. It doesn't mean we accept these kinds of things you're talking about,
Yes,
dictatorships or something, but, now we have to sort of right our own ship. We have our own problems. So, if we're going to become kind of a moral beacon or something to the world, we have to kind of get our own house in order first.
yes,
And so we need to take care of that because now we're starting to resemble, in some words, a third world
yes,
dictatorship, and we're moving in that direction. So we've got our own real problems to deal with right here. But
exactly.
if we can overcome that, then we have to. I think we should always speak out against it. Maybe we can mobilize the world community through
Yes,
economic pressure or whatever to have an effect on countries like that, to make it more painful to conduct yourselves like that. Because I
Yes.
feel like we're on that precipice. We're going to go towards all these authoritarian governments, or we're going to go towards a more open democratic society. It seems like we're right at that point now, and it's not exactly sure, not clear what way we're going. So
Yeah, I think we need a new theory about like balancing being democratic and at the same time being strong in foreign policy, like or toward dictators or terrorists. Or okay, let me go to the last question. So, I mean, I have seen like the Republicans, Senate Republicans, and the way they support Trump. So, why Senate Republicans that choose to become the loyal herd of Trump? So do you think that that appeal to tradition and conservatism itself has a role in this, or is it a sign of corruption, or yeah, or what other ideas do you have about why they are so loyal, like as if he is the supreme leader now?
right. I think it's, I was talking a little bit about before about the Citizens United and putting so much money into politics now
Yes,
that the Koch brothers and whatnot can sort of flood these districts with money. So I think
yes,
Republicans now, as we heard, are afraid to go against Trump because they're afraid if they go too much against him, all this big money is going to go in and they're going to get primaried by opponents who will do
yeah,
what Trump wants. So I think he's got them completely terrified to go against him. And I think it's an effect of the big money in politics. So campaign finance reform, I think, is a very important issue that needs to come into our political system so we can control the money influence and have more fair elections. But I think a lot of Republicans may want to run against him.
yes,
Some of them maybe just support him anyway. They're just of that mindset. But I think there are Republicans who, and we're starting to see some grumblings even now as we watch this debate about the stimulus money for a new relief package that they want
yes,
to pass to help people out. The Republicans can't even get united on this, so they realize, especially if they're vulnerable in states or districts, that
yes.
they're going to get blamed for this, and so but they're also afraid to stand up to Trump. So they're kind of in a bind right now. But I think it's that money in politics is a big reason for this. If we got rid of that, then it might be a totally different environment in
Like
which,
a better government than
yeah,
this one. Yeah.
it
So,
doesn't go to the highest bidders.
as I understand from what you said, it seems like Republicans now, like, they're thinking about should we choose the people or should we choose the money? And it seems so far they have chosen the money over the people who are,
Right.
yeah, they are representing.
They
Uh,
want to hang on to their seat. They don't want to lose their seat. They like their position of prestige. So
yeah. So it seems like an aristocratic party right now. Like they are aristocrats and rich people who,
oligarchs. I don't want to
yeah,
use that word,
oligarchs.
but it seems like a
Yes,
lot of oligarchs in there
yeah,
now. They're moving towards that.
yes. Thank you, Bruce, for all these explanations and answers. I really enjoyed talking to you. I hope to see you next time. I believe we will talk about your book in more depth. Yeah, next
Sounds
time.
good. Look
Okay.
forward to it.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.